Greetings, welcome to this video. You may be wondering what this video is about. It's about change. It's about time. It's about time to change. Specifically, the stages of change. Even more specifically, the stages of change one takes when trying to get out of a bad habit. There are 5 basic stages of change. Technically, you could say there's a 6th, but for now, in our purposes, we're going to say that there are 5, maybe 5.5. Anyway, they are the following: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, taking action, maintenance. Yeah! A very important note to make at this point is that change is not really as linear as this makes it look. Change is a cycle that you go through, and positive change cycles you towards the maintenance stage. You may start at the pre-contemplation stage and move to the contemplation stage and even reach the preparation stage. But then you may fall back to the contemplation stage. The bottom line is that the change process is not a linear event, it is cyclical. Furthermore, you could be ready to change in one aspect of your life but not another. Thus, you have multiple cycles of change always happening all the time. Here's an example. Let's say Clift struggles in a certain 8 a.m. class. There are many reasons for this. Clift has a girlfriend he hangs out with until very late, he has a friend group that he is a part of, and he is in charge of 5 different clubs and organizations on campus. Now there are some things here that Clifton could potentially change, but maybe he's only ready to change how late he stays up with his girlfriend. Clifton actually may be in the take action phase in regards to how late he stays up with his girlfriend. However, he may be in the pre-contemplation phase in regard to the number of clubs they are involved in. This is meant to illustrate how someone can be in multiple stages within various issues. This is an important note, as each of the issues someone is dealing with may be intertwined. This may mean that change in one area may necessitate change in another. In this example, Clifton is so busy with these clubs during the day that he doesn't have time for this important relationship, and therefore he can only pour into it late at night. One last thing before we continue. I've organized this video where each stage we will visit will address the characteristics of someone in that stage. After we address the characteristics you need to know in order to identify someone in each stage, I will give you some practical ideas of how to approach someone in that stage. There's another video that goes in depth about several of the tools and suggestions so you can reach a better understanding of how to utilize these tools. Pre-contemplation. First, let's talk about characteristics of someone in the pre-contemplation stage. A person who is in the pre-contemplation stage may be unwilling or even unaware of their current behaviors. It's that old idea that first you have to admit that you have a problem. They have underlying beliefs which are played out by their actions, which are unexamined or ignored. Pre-contemplationers engage in very little activity that may shift their point of view. For example, our friend Clifton, when in this stage, would not be very interested in talking about his academic activities, or lack thereof. Oftentimes, someone in this stage is defensive of their behavior, coming up with a million reasons why there is nothing wrong with their actions. As you speak with them about their ambivalence, they feel like the negative aspects of their behavior do not outweigh the positive aspects. So we ask Clifton, "Hey man, how do you think your social life is impacting your academics?" He'd reply,
"Oh man, no big deal. Yeah, I might have missed a few assignments, but I've been having the time of my life."
The final characteristic, and a characteristic that happens through all of these stages, is resistance. Vive la resistance! I'm generally resistant. We will discuss resistance and how to roll with it in great detail in another video. For now, remember that motivational interviewing assumes that resistance inherently comes with the realm of interpersonal interaction. Resistance is not wholly shouldered by the speaker. The listener's questions and reflecting feedback may cause some of that resistance. Motivational interviewing reframes how we respond as listeners to effectively sidestep resistance. The more resistance there is, the less likely that person will be to change. How should we address these people in the pre-contemplation stage? First, it is important to learn why they are resistant. You need to understand those underlying beliefs which are shaping their actions. As you listen and learn, they may actually begin to examine their own thoughts and thus bring those hidden beliefs up to the surface. So look at this stage as an opportunity to learn more and mutually explore the speaker's beliefs and thoughts. Next, it is important to recognize pre-contemplation as the earliest part of change. If someone is in this phase, they have a long way to go before any action will follow. Try not to push them too quickly to the contemplation stage. This may cause resistance. Next, you'll definitely need to roll with resistance. And make sure as you roll with resistance, you do it in a positive way. The next stage of change is contemplation. At this point, the person tends to be taking a serious look at the pros and cons of changing their behavior. Here are the general characteristics. These people acknowledge there is a problem. They say, yeah, this isn't the greatest. And a lot of time this is followed up by but. During this stage, it is common for the speaker to have trouble grasping the problem as a whole and clearly understanding the causes. This makes it difficult for the speaker to see solutions. At this point in the stages of change, the speaker will also experience the most ambivalence. This is because there's clearly a problem, but the solution is unclear and there seems to be no way out. People in the contemplation stage acknowledge a lot of the negative effects of their habits. They have plenty of reasons why what they are doing is not the best thing, yet they still have plenty of counterpoints as well. If our friend Clifton was in the stage of change, he might say something like,
"I really have trouble getting to bed on time. I think it may be affecting getting up in the morning, but I don't really know what to do about it because I really want to see my girlfriend, and late at night seems to be the only time we have together. So I'm missing out on a lot of sleep." sleep.
So how can we address people in this stage? Let them evaluate the pros and cons. When you reflect back to them, point out both sides, but definitely try to land on the more positive side. If you're going to ask them to try to tell you something, try to explore the pros, not the cons. To properly reflect Clifton's statement, you might say, you value your time with your girlfriend and you feel you don't have time for sleep. We call this a double-sided reflection, and it is very helpful when reflecting ambivalent statements. During this phase, it's important to help them acknowledge the positives of the behavior they want to change. We don't want to dwell on the pros to maintaining the status quo, but we also want to give them a voice. You want to help Clifton see that it is important for him to spend time with his girlfriend, as she is an important relationship to him. There's nothing wrong with wanting to spend time with her, and there's nothing wrong with feeling like you don't have enough time to sleep. One great way you can do that is through summarization, synthesizing what you hear into a short statement that may help the speaker hear what it sounds like they are saying. This will help the speaker clarify points that you may have wrong, or assent to say you understand what they are saying. Finally, it is really important to listen for change statements. When they arise, you want to be positive about those statements, reflect them back, and take more time to explore them. These change statements are what you are looking for. Next in the stages of change is preparation. Often in this stage, the speaker has tried to change the habit a lot, and failed. A lot. However, they also have often learned what works and what doesn't work well from their previous experiences. Someone in this stage talks about and plans the change they intend to make by discussing realistic goals that are relevant to them. This demonstrates the readiness to change. Unrealistic goals indicate how the speaker is not truly ready to change because they are not aware of how much work it will take. When you find that someone is in this stage, generally they will make a serious attempt to change in the near future. So if you notice these signs of change readiness, be ready to help begin creating a plan. It's important to note that at this point, commitment to change does not actually equal change. They are actually still in the decision process, which means you still don't want to rush them along. At this point in the change process, ambivalence will probably not be entirely resolved. So what are some ways that you can help these people out? It's important to feel for how truly committed they are to the change. If they are talking about realistic goals, this may mean that they are close to change. But if they've got wildly outrageous goals and plans, then they might not quite be there yet. If this happens, you should try to caution them about how realistic their goals are. Remember, you don't want to do this in a combative way. Let's say Clifton says,
I'm going to buckle down and study every night this week as soon as dinner is done, until it's time for bed.
You could reply a couple of ways. Clifton, what are some potential barriers to studying 6 hours every night? Or another great option would be, you said you were going to that shindig on Tuesday night because it would help you relax. Is that not an option now? These responses highlight the discrepancies between what is planned and what is probable. Another thing you want to do is help them identify possible barriers to change and then brainstorm contingency plans to these barriers. If they haven't thought through likely troubles, then when they encounter the difficulties, it may be significantly harder to bounce back from them. Another powerful tool here is to give a menu of options. Obviously, you don't want to overwhelm them, but if they really are in the planning stage, they will need ideas on how to move forward. You'll want to draw on your previous knowledge of them in order to formulate a good plan. They should definitely lead in the process of deciding how they wish to proceed. You are there as a sounding board to help them determine what is realistic, helpful, and good. The next stage is taking action. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. So you can probably guess most of the characteristics. Basically, someone in this stage is actually implementing the plan that was created in the preparation stage. Now you may be tired of hearing this, but something to keep in mind in this stage is that action does not equal change. Are you seeing a pattern here? This is why change is so difficult. Even once you've worked through all the ambivalence and made a plan and implemented that plan, change must be sustained. Just because they are doing what they said does not mean that they are out of the woods, so to speak. As an example with drug addictions, it's difficult to determine when somebody has truly broken the habit. What's the cutoff time for making a change? 1 year? 2 years? A lifetime? This is not easily determined, and someone who is truly making a change in their life will understand that it takes constant upkeep to maintain a change. This is especially true for habits that have been deeply ingrained over long periods of time. So what ways can you help someone in this stage? Basically, it's important to support their self-efficacy. Encourage them by helping them recognize that they've created a healthy and realistic plan. Help them remember their reasons for changing. You also want to be a part of reevaluating the plan to make sure that it's working. What adjustments should be made? Are there any barriers that were not anticipated? The final stage is maintenance. This is where the person is keeping up and actually doing their plan. We're not going to go into any more depth, but just know and understand that people may cycle through the stages of change even once they've reached the maintenance stage. Change is ever present within our lives. It is something we must constantly deal with. I can remember when I went to college in my second semester, I realized that in my walk with the Lord, I was never going to be there. Do you know what I mean? Where you've made it and you've got it all figured out. I think change is one of the basic elements to the human experience. We are constantly encountering things which alter us, and situations change how we view the world. Hurt, pain, love, excitement, sorrow, frustration, elation, fear, comfort, anger, joy all shape who we are. And this topic of change is an important idea to consider. If you walk through life without thinking about who you are becoming, and who you desire to become, you'll be swept away by all that life throws at you. To be able to evaluate and decide who you want to be is one of the only things you really have control over. You're not able to change the weather, force someone to give you a job, make someone love you, but you can control what you do with your life and how you spend your time. To make a concerted effort to change is not an easy road. It is not a natural way to live, but it does give you a small amount of control over who you become. Thanks for listening. Until next time.